What was the most beeped up thing you saw in school? In 6th grade, my math teacher was arrested for having child pornography on his laptop and watching it during breaks. He had just finished helping me on a math problem when he looked up at me, smiled, and said, "I really like that birthmark on your face. It looks like a teardrop." It looks really cute when the vice principal walks into the room and asks him to step outside. We have big window in our classroom and the front door was wide open. Outside stood the entire administration and 2 police officers. The vice principal took his laptop, and they left. Never saw that teacher again. The white dove they released for Peace Day got immediately snatched mid-flight by a red-tailed hawk. This was in elementary school. Saw a girl stomp on another girl's jaw with her high-heeled boot for looking at her boyfriend at the next lunch table over. I heard she had to get her jaw wired. I hope she was charged with assault. That is disgusting. I hope her boyfriend realized what a jealous, insecure POS she is and dumped her on the spot. A kid in my biology class accidentally stabbed his face with scissors. Then another kid chased him out of the room with a microscope slide to catch a few drops of blood. So he took his blood-covered slide and the teacher resignedly let us see the red blood cells still moving around. The stabbed kid was fine. A few stitches and he was good to go. Opportunist. Saw a kid throw a pickleball paddle at a gym teacher. Knocked her unconscious. Blood everywhere. He was suspended for some time. Was an asshole. That's actually really bad. Was she okay? Concussion and stitches. Paddle clocked her right in the forehead. I have a vivid memory of her clutching the padding you see on gym walls as she went down. She was older, so you could tell after that she was a bit uneasy. A guy literally speeping on a teacher's desk. "What's up? What's up? Crapped on your desk. Dog. Sup with that?" A kid hung himself on a playground our senior year. I hear his brother found him. This all happened a week after 2 of the brother's friends, also seniors, died when they wrapped their classic Mustang around a tree near the high school. Made for a rough senior year to say the least. Jesus Christ. Poor guy. How's he doing now? Better. Has a family of his own now. Someone hung themselves in the girls' locker room. People came in to change, and had to hold her feet up to make sure that she didn't die. It was beeped. My middle school teacher did a thing where we could bring our pets to school. A kid in my class got attacked by a macaw after he tried to grab it off a desk so he could play with it and had to go to the hospital to get stitches. I was suspended and grounded for bringing a macaw to school. Don't beep with parrots. My bestie's green cheek kana can bite hard enough to make you need stitches, and he's smaller than a hamster. When I was 8, we were making cookies in class and they gave us square cheese graters to make chocolate chips with. Because they didn't trust us with knives of fair judgment. Some kid was holding a few graters and pretended to be a robot. This girl shouted at him because he wasn't a robot and proceeded to take one of the graters and grate his hand. Lots of blood happened and then a pair of twins both fainted. The beep? What happened to the person who tried to grate the kid's hand? I don't recall her getting in trouble at all. Not that I saw anyway. I think it was just put down as an accident. And Hot Fuzz has taught me that accident implies there's no one to blame. So I will use collision from now on. In kindergarten there were 2 kids in my class that were cousins. They were just kind of dirty. Physically, I mean. No real regard for hygiene. Our school was made of concrete blocks, so the windowsills were deep enough to sit in as a kid. In the bathroom the window was way up high. like 2 feet from the ceiling. During the allotted class bathroom break, these two cousins would climb up the stall walls, sit in the super high windowsill, and dangle their feet. Then the 16 other boys in our grade would line up like a firing squad and try to piss on their feet. It was a game. If you hit the lanky one's feet, you're doing okay. But if you hit the short one's feet, that's really something. The kids getting pissed on loved it as much as we did. They invented the game. We did this every single day for a whole school year. 16 5-year-olds would line up and piss on the wall. Nobody ever said a word to us about it. It was a rival football game and the stands were packed. A section of the old wood bleachers collapsed and 20 or so students went to the hospital with numerous broken bones, concussions, and lacerations of various degrees. During the same game, I saw a guy get hit so hard in the leg that it shattered and both bones were showing. Poor kid ended up in a wheelchair for the rest of the school year. I know it has nothing to do with your comment, but it reminded me about a classmate who had his leg broken and had to use a wheelchair. An earthquake happened and he was left all alone in the classroom while everyone else evacuated. Bonus: we once had a gas leak, but fortunately everyone returned home safely. Bonus 2. My school also went bankrupt 1 month ago because the owners had a crippling debt with the bank and didn't pay rent for the building we were using. That should be a thread on its own. I'm just imagining the whole class outside and the teachers like, did anyone get Billy? I was in HS in the 90s. They announced the OJ verdict over the PA system. A girl with bulimia tried to shout down a spiral staircase. But because her gag reflex was so weak, she vomited from a great height instead. Oh, the splash. Emerald splash. Nobody could deflect it? A kid jumped over the balcony to try and beat the rush on mashed potato day. He broke both his legs. Did not get his potatoes. Took me too long to realize mashed potato day is probably just the day your cafeteria serves mashed potatoes, and not some kind of big yearly mashed potato event at your school. Ah man. I wish it would have been a mashed potato event. That would have been so amazing. But alas. No. Just plain old mashed potato day. It was every Friday and always a madhouse trying to get down to the cafeteria due to the way the school was set up. There is no way on God's green earth that school cafeteria mashed potatoes were so good that students looked forward to them. What the hell was the secret ingredient? Heroin. They were good. I think it was just the gravy. It was a solid country gravy. Terribly unhealthy with every bite. These two kids got into fight at my school. Somewhere during the tussle, one kid lost his balance and on the way down threw the meanest uppercut ever. He connected on the other kid's bare teeth and pushed them into his gums. He peeped up his own hand really bad. Blood just everywhere and no teachers in sight for like another 3 minutes. This is some Mortal Kombat X-ray vision speep. A kid clipped the tip of his tongue off with a pair of safety scissors after someone dared him to. One of my brother's friends cut the very tip of his nose off cause someone dared him to defined. Maybe it was to spite his face. Some girl broke up with a guy. So he smeared his speep on her locker and pissed all over it. What's with all the speep stories in this thread? I want to know too. How did so many people get comfortable handling poop? Nothing that I personally saw at my high school was disturbingly beeped up. Just weird. Some kid smuggled in a bunch of onions and clogged all the downstairs toilets with them. Who the hell does that? I had this kid named Colin in my 6th grade class. Always saying the stupidest speep. Asking stupid questions. Just pissing off the teacher in general. Well, I'll never forget it. It was the Tuesday of our last week of school. Colin was assigned this like 15-page packet for whatever reason. He flipped and started cussing out the teacher. Our teacher at the time, who was this pretty nice guy, turned around and with the meanest look I've ever said pointed at him and said, "You better clean up your goddamn act or you're gonna end up in prison in a couple years." Colin kicked him right in the balls. The teacher pushed Colin so hard that Colin fell into a desk behind him and apparently fractured his scapula. The entire class was dead silent. I'm pretty sure the teacher got fired and Colin never came back to school. Not sure what happened to him. I was in 9th grade. One of our classmates got drunk, stripped and streaked the lunchroom, gymnasium, basically any place crowded. The staff was afraid to tackle a naked teenager, so we all got an eyeful. Some dumb-ass kid stuck a pair of tweezers in an old outlet that didn't even have a circuit breaker, so I don't know how he didn't die. In my school there was a kid or multiple kids. We don't know who would speep in a urinal every once in a while. They were known as the urinal speepter. Someone made a meme with the Grim Reaper going to the doors template with all the bathrooms they had done it in. And the Reaper going into the last bathroom, the office bathroom. The meme spread very quickly and I guess some teachers saw it. Since there is blood in the meme coming from under all the closed doors, they decided it was a credible threat of violence. They closed the school for 2 days for safety concerns. Just a super weird story all around. Sounds like a case for the Hardley boys. Someone had taken a massive speep. It was larger than a coffee cup in width and considerably longer. So large it was impossible to flush. People were lined up into the halls to see this monstrosity, including faculty. You know it's a small town when a turd calls that much attention. Undefined. Nobody had a poof knife. And it's gone. Poof. There was a girl I was friends with who had developed early and had pretty big boobs and considered thick for a 5th grader. Hanged with a group of 5 or 6 girls. Most of the girls in this group were short, skinny, and the pretty ones of the class, so she stuck out from that group. During recess these 5 girls ganged up on her and pulled down, sometimes ripping her shirt, exposing her chest, and laugh cause they thought it was funny. She'd fight it and tell them to stop, but they'd do it even more, sometimes pinning her arms to the side so they could. She ended up hanging out with me more and finding different friends in middle school. Jesus beeping Christ. This is just straight sexual assault. These were her friends and they were pinning her down and pulling her shirt down. Yeah, friends. A kid in my school year stabbed one of my friends in the back. Not verbally. I mean with an actual kitchen knife. We were 11. Edit, wow. I didn't think my most popular comment would be one about my friend getting stabbed. We are in the UK and it's 31 years ago in a place near Peterborough. I've tried finding it online but there aren't any online articles about it. I've asked my mum as she is a hoarder and she might have a copy of it from the paper as it made national headlines. He was stabbed in the back and it narrowly missed his spine. He was in hospital for a week as needed surgery to remove the blade and then went home with no side effects physically except the scar, which was pretty impressive. Obviously psychologically was a different kettle of fish. The boy that stabbed him wasn't one of his friends but wasn't an enemy either. He had gone around that morning saying that he was going to stab someone but no one took him seriously. He was sat at the desk behind my friend and leaned forward and stabbed him. He was expelled, but at that time I believe the law was that he was considered a child and therefore couldn't be prosecuted. Knife crime wasn't really a thing here in the UK at the time. I hope that answers some of the questions that there have been. When I was 9, someone stabbed another kid in the back with a maths compass. Just randomly with no real motive or logic. Why do the most violent stories here involve elementary age kids? 'Cause kids at that age are psychopaths. Middle school. I was chilling in the band room and I look out to the hall to see a kid with some sort of liquid coming out of his eye. Later I found out some kid stabbed his eye with a pencil. A girl was coming back from a doctor's appointment and wasn't there to hear that we couldn't get out equipment for recess. She opened the door, grabbed something and went to leave. The wind kicked up and slammed the door on her hand and she lost a finger. They rushed her to the hospital and they sewed it back on and eventually it was back to normal, but that was the most beeped up thing I had seen. I actually remember that happening to someone in the daycare my mom put me in. Needless to say, I didn't stay in that daycare for very long. I had a Scottish teacher and an Irish teacher in 5th grade. And they were great mates. I got along well with both of them as well, so as I was leaving for the weekend I went and told them to have a good weekend. They told me the same. Anyway, when I got to school on the Monday, neither was there. Which was odd. Then the next day the same story. This went on for about a week. And I was starting to get worried. Then about a week after, we had an assembly, where we found out that the Scottish teacher was a fugitive. What happened was on the Saturday after I wished them a good weekend, they went out for a party and got drunk. They then went over to Irish teacher's place, where they got into an argument. Scottish teacher got pissed and punched Irish teacher, who had heart problems, in the chest. He promptly died. Scottish teacher left, got his fiancée and fled the country, presumably back to Scotland. In 1st grade a boy pulled his pants and underwear to below his knees and laid down on his back. Then a girl spat on him. I don't remember why, but I will never forget that sight. 2 fetuses were born on that day. Didn't actually see it. But the most beeped up thing that happened in my school was the time a sophomore videoed a special needs kid jerking it off in the bathroom stall from above in the stall next to him. Undefined. There was a bathroom at my school near the special ed hall that nobody liked to use. The story was that occasionally during 7th period this special ed kid would go into one of the stalls and start loudly jacking off. One day I was in the bathroom taking a speep 7th period because I'm a dumbass and didn't believe it, and this kid walks in and gets into the stall next to mine. He then proceeds to start jacking off and making loud unintelligible noises. Being an avid reader of green text at that time in my life, there was no way in hell I was leaving my stall till he was gone. I waited like 15 minutes of him making post-nut noises before he left without washing his beeping hands. I was mortified. And I decided to walk a lot longer to the next closest bathroom instead of using that one again. We entire school watched some guy jump from 12th floor. Damn. Your school has 12 floors? Wayside school gets a little stranger. Would have had to jump from 12 since there is no 19th floor. Also was just nostalgically checking Wikipedia and there's a new book from this year. A couple peeping in the dumpster behind the cafeteria. For the rest of the year, people would walk up behind the dude crinkling paper and asking if it was getting him hard. Just to add a bit, 4 or 5 of my friends and I stumbled upon this event while we were coming back on campus, and one of them went to throw his trash away. It got around the school pretty damn fast. It's probably a good thing that I'm old enough that the smartphone wasn't a thing when I was in high school, because there's a good shot that one of the group would have been dumb and taken a picture that included a 17-year-old having sex. Like physically in the dumpster or just behind it in some sort of enclosure. Inside the dumpster, where the trash belongs. The troubled kid had a panic attack because of a teacher. I think he had some issues at home. He was quiet. Talked to no one. He always fought when people bothered him. He was something. Well, anyways, there was this teacher. She was really strict and got aggravated easily. Let's call her Mrs. Whale. We used to call her that, but she had asked him a question and he refused to answer. His head down looking at his empty paper. The teacher exploded on him, telling him stuff like, "You will never be anything in life, and do your parents even love you?" He sat next to me and I saw that he clenched his fists and started to shake. He tried to say something but it all came out to be gibberish because he broke down right there on his desk. No one really knew him, so we didn't know what to do. We all just sat there as the teacher kept on insulting him, not caring that he had started to shake. A nearby teacher heard all the commotion and came to check on us and saw it. She calmly talked to the still yelling Mrs. Whale outside as we just awkwardly sat there watching this kid break down. We did nothing. I really wish I would have done something, but I was frozen in place. After Mrs. Whale calmed down, the other teacher helped the kid out to the office. We never saw that kid and Mrs. Whale after that. They said Mrs. Whale had retired early, but I don't think so. No surprise they tell the student body that she retired out of shame when she was really fired, lol. Kinda like that one story how that guy whose job laid him off, but labeled him as promoted just to make them look good. Having a guy who killed his wife then come to the school and held my class hostage to try to force the school to give him his son so he could kill him. He was finally caught on his way to kill his parents in defined undefined. I think I've heard of this story before. I have told it before. Happened in Chicago undefined. About a month into my first year of high school, two girls got into a fight during lunch. The principal got hold of one of them and was pulling her away. She was trying to break free and during that her tit popped out. The principal tried getting her shirt back on her but ended up grabbing her tit instead. We were in 4th grade and class just let out for a 5 minutes break. I was with a group of girls and we walked into the bathroom. On the far wall was a giant ring of speep painted in the shape of a heart. There was even visible undisguised food in the feces that, for some reason, is burned into my memory. There was a kind of a witch hunt. The principal called out students in the hallway, one by one, to question the kids. No one confessed as far as I remember. But there was a lot of suspicion surrounding a boy who liked to talk about butts and flatulence. I'm not even sure that he did it. But make too many asshole jokes in class and something like this happens. You are suspect 1. You mean suspect 2? Some kid kept speeping in the sink every week and they had to keep cleaning it up. One day I walked in the bathroom and someone had put speep on the wall. Had some girls in my high school who were creating works of art in the same fashion. They were deemed the fecal phantoms, and were never caught. We had the notorious speep swastika smeared on the walls of a stall one day. Never found out who did it. I feel like I may have gone to your fecal swastikas are more common than I thought, but I choose not to believe that. A girl had diarrhea and was wearing tights and sitting in class and the tights started getting really lumpy, but she didn't get up to go to the bathroom. What the beep? A giant hawk swooped down on campus and sunk its talons into the back of a squirrel foraging for acorns about 20 or 25 yards from me. Scared the bejesus out of me. He stood on it like a boss for a few seconds and then flew off with it. This was at like 7:30 in the morning, so it took me a while to wrap my brain around it. The guy walking in front of me spun around and said, "Please tell me you saw that. The circle of life is quite beautiful."